Hello everyone! Khadgar's been given a bigger role to play in Warlords of Draenor, which caused a lot of you to ask me who he is and what he's actually done for the story. That's why I thought it would be a good idea to take a look at Khadgar's story and talk about the events before Warlords of Draenor. His story is connected to a lot of major characters, and the first time we hear about him is when he shows up at the Tower of Karason. He's going to be an apprentice of the Guardian Medivh, but to understand it all, we'll first have to talk a little bit about Medivh, about Sargeras, about Archmage, so let's just begin and explore the story of Khadgar. I hope you'll enjoy. Right, so about Medivh and Sargeras and Archmage. For those that don't know, Sargeras, he's a corrupted titan and leader of the Burning Legion. Once upon a time, his demonic forces, they summoned the avatar of Sargeras onto Azeroth, and there the Guardian Archmage, Medivh's mother, she stood her ground against him. The Guardian was a powerful mage, if not the most powerful mage, whose job it was to keep the world safe against demonic threats. I've done a full video on the Guardians if you want more details, but either way, Archmage, she stood against the avatar and she actually won the battle. She destroyed the avatar of Sargeras, but what she didn't know was that this was Sargeras' plan all along. He wanted Archmage to destroy him so that he could infiltrate her body, wait inside of her for the right opportunity to weaken Azeroth's defenses and make it ready for a new Legion invasion. After their battle, Archmage, she locked away the avatar's remains within the tomb of Sargeras, and she resumed her life as the Guardian. Luckily for Sargeras, Archmage, she did not like her leaders, the Council of Tearsfall, and instead of transferring her powers to a new Guardian, she decided that she would be the one to give birth to her heir and transfer her powers to him. She seduced a mage at the court of Stormwind, she became pregnant with his son, and Sargeras infiltrated her unborn baby, corrupting him before he was even born. Her son would be named Medivh, and as promised, Archmage did not hand over her powers to the council so that they could decide who would be the next guardian. Instead, she transferred them to her child and then left him behind to be raised by his father. Medivh would grow up with his friends like Anduin Lothar and the future king of Stormwind Lane Rin, but his life was not an easy one. Duty was placed upon him at an early age, and the powers deep inside, not only the guardian's powers but also those Sargeras, they were too much to handle. One day, Medivh was overwhelmed by it all, and he fell into a deep coma. When he woke up again, he acted like nothing big happened, but his friend Lothar, he never forgot this moment. He always kept a close eye on his longtime friend as Medivh resumed his role as Guardian, took up residence within the Tower of Karason, and all the while still carrying Sargeras within him. Meanwhile, on a different planet called Draenor, Gul'dan, one of Sargeras' most trusted and powerful followers, he worked on corrupting the Orcs to have them exterminate the Draenei. His plan succeeded. The Orcs, they formed a Horde, they nearly eradicated all of the Draenei, the planet was corrupted, and Gul'dan left the Orcs to their fates. The Orcish warlock Gul'dan, the one who sold his people into slavery to the Legion for more power, he was in a tight spot. The Orcs, they had nothing left to fight. There was demon blood pumping in their veins, there was hardly any water or food left, and they all knew who was responsible. They were coming for Gul'dan, but luckily for him, Sargeras had use of him. He made contact with Gul'dan as the Guardian Medivh. He made contact with him. He showed him the world of Azeroth, a planet full of food, water, and plenty of enemies for the Orcs to kill. Together, they worked on creating the Dark Portal, they linked it to the planet of Azeroth, and they started the first Orcish invasion.
The time has come! Gul'dan, order your warlocks to double their efforts! Moments from now, the gateway will open, and your horde will be released upon this ripe, unsuspecting world.
Sargeras, he wanted human and orc to clash with each other, so that the defenses would be weakened, and the planet would be that much easier to conquer for his legion. This all happened in secret, of course. Nobody knew that Medivh was actually corrupted, but that was all about to change, because this finally brings us to Khadgar. At this time, Khadgar, he was simply a young student at Dalaran, but he was gifted and he was smart. The Kirin Tor asked Medivh to take on an apprentice many times before, but most of the times he simply ignored the request, and even if they were allowed to come to the tower, even if he did take on an apprentice or an assistant, they didn't last long. The Tower of Karason is a very magical place. Visions of the future or the past, they're not uncommon. And then the mage Medivh himself, he was demanding and a whimsical man. Not surprising when you have a titan living within you, but Khadgar, he was special. Like I said, he was a smart and gifted student, and most of all, he didn't always follow the rules. He was able to get Medivh to take him on as an assistant, but he wasn't immediately his apprentice. That spot would have to be earned and his first task was cleaning up Medivh's library and seeing if he was able to not only hold up against the Tower of Karason, but also keep up with the mages. Karason wasted no time, and on his first day there, Khadgar received a vision of a world unknown. He saw human soldiers, worn out from battle, ready to fight green-fleshed monsters, but none paid him any attention. They were unable to see him, except for their leader, which was a great, white-bearded man with broad shoulders, holding a staff and a sword, and he looked directly into Khadgar's eyes. Khadgar recognized the man. The eyes that he saw there were his own eyes, and the tower gave him a glimpse of his own future. Now Medivh, he led a busy life. He was often called away on guardian business, or the Titus Sargeras wanted to do some stuff, and for 2 weeks in a row, Khadgar spent his time cleaning up the library and getting familiar with the tower. One day, Medivh returned to the tower, and at first, he didn't even recognize his assistant. He actually thought that Khadgar was some sort of thief, and he attacked him before he realized who he was, and he apologized to Khadgar for his messy memory. Medivh did not return without a reason though. He told Khadgar that time was of the essence, and they would quickly have to leave. At the top of the tower, there were already griffins waiting for them, but Khadgar, he had no idea how to actually ride one of these beasts. Thankfully, Medivh had a solution. He placed his thumb on the young wizard's head, and he forced the knowledge into his brain. Now, Khadgar did know how to ride a griffin, and together, they took off into the sky, but along the way, they were fired at from below by a volley of arrows. Medivh, he was able to avoid the attack. He was a skilled rider, but Khadgar, he was not so lucky. His mount was hit by arrows, he lost his balance, and he fell towards the ground below, right into the hands of a group of orcs. You see, the first Orcs invasion, it did not happen instantly. More and more troops, they flooded out of the dark portal, they were scouting the land, they were raiding here and there, until they were ready for their full attack. Here, Khadgar, he had found a camp of them. He tries to scare them away with some of his magic, but amongst the orcs was a warlock who challenged him to play. Khadgar was already tapped out by trying to scare away the orcs. There was no way that he could take on a full group of them, but luckily for him, Medivh found him in time. He was able to kill a few of them and make the rest run. Now standing up to the orcs, mastering how to ride a griffin on his first try, and of course organizing the library, it had earned Khadgar the spot as Medivh's apprentice. He met with Anduin Lothar that very night, who had come to help with the orcs, and Lothar asked Khadgar to keep an eye on Medivh. He had known the mages for a very long time, had seen him slip into a coma, and he wanted someone on the inside to keep an eye on Medivh. Khadgar promised that if there was anything a friend like Lothar would have to know, then he would pass the information on, but his loyalty was with Medivh first. Now as an apprentice, Khadgar was now trained by the mages himself. He would spend his days practicing magic, organizing, doing chores for the mages, and learning about the nature of Karason, time, and magic itself. Each passing day, Khadgar became more powerful and skilled. He was being trained by one of the greatest in the world, but soon enough, Medivh's secrets would be known. One day, a new visitor arrived at the tower, and she was called Garona Half-Orcan. She was to be an ambassador for the Orcs, since Medivh believed that war was not their only option. If they were able to open up lines of communication, then perhaps they would find a way to settle the conflicts peacefully. Garona, at the time, she was actually believed to be half human and half orc, but later they revealed that she was actually half orc and half Draenei. She was created in order of Gul'dan, who then tortured her, aged her, trained her in the ways of the assassin, and he placed magical spells on her mind to make sure that she remained obedient. At first, Khadgar couldn't believe that Medivh would allow an orc within their home, but Medivh told him that it was not their home, but it was his home, and Khadgar, he was just his apprentice. He had also allowed Khadgar in, even though he knew fully well that Khadgar was not only sent to learn, he was also there to gain information and send it back to Kirin Tor. So Khadgar, he was in no position to judge. The apprentice, he disagreed with his master and he didn't trust Garona, but that would change when a fell beast made his way in and it attacked them both. Together, they took on the mighty demon. They reported it back to the mages, but Medivh, he simply didn't believe them. There were magical spells placed on the tower to prevent things like this from happening, and none of them were activated, so Medivh thought that they had made it all up. Even so, battling a demon together, it brought them closer, and they had talked about both their worlds. Garona explained about the Orcish clans and how they made their way to Azeroth, but she didn't know where the portal came from, but perhaps Khadgar would be able to find out. He had been working on a spell which would allow him to summon a vision of Karason at will. He had already seen Adwin fight with Sargeras, he had seen Medivh fall into his coma, and perhaps he would be able to see a vision of who started it all. Khadgar was uncertain if his spell would work, but it did, and they found out that it was Medivh who made contact with Gul'dan, and he was the one who brought the orcs to Azeroth. They wanted to confront Medivh about what they had found out. They wanted to ask him what was going on, since both of them, they trusted him. But before they could, Medivh showed up and he asked them what was going on. On the ground, they saw two shadows behind Medivh, one of the mages and one of Sargeras. Khadgar, he used the spell once more to summon a vision that would distract Medivh, and together with Garona, they escaped the tower in the hope of finding help. This help would come from Anduin Lothar, who believes Khadgar's story since he had seen a similar thing when Medivh was in his coma. They flew back to the tower, they found the hidden area down below, and they confronted their friends. In their final confrontation, Medivh used his magic to set Lothar on fire, he assaulted Garona's mind with visions, and he literally drained the life out of Khadgar, making him look like an old man. Even though his spells were horrible, Khadgar, he managed to stab Medivh, take his life, and before their eyes, Sargeras himself started to emerge. Before he can completely solidify, Lothar, he chopped off the head, and he ended Sargeras and Medivh at the same time. The real Medivh, deep inside, had been trying to fight against the corruption. He had been placing people around him that would be willing to do what had to be done when the moment arrived, and his plans had stopped Sargeras for the moment, but it did not end his threat completely. His plans were already on the way, the orcs, they were already on Azeroth, and their invasion had only just begun. Now, as a reward for loyalty, they offered Garona a spot at Stormwind's court, but Gul'dan's spells were still placed on her mind. Cho'Gall used these spells as the Horde battered Stormwind, and he turned her against the new allies, and with tears on her face, Garona assassinated the King of Stormwind.
The clans are united under Black Hand in this assault. They will stand together until Stormwind has fallen. Gul'dan is bringing up his warlocks by nightfall. Until then, the Blackrock clan will be trying to take the eastern wall.
1,000 deaths.
We will hold until the reinforcements come. As long as men with stout hearts are manning the walls and the throne, Stormwind will
Tremble,
hold.
mortals, before the coming of the end.
The orc leaders agree with your assessment.
With the fall of the king, Stormwind quickly fell after, and Lothar, together with Khadgar, he took as many of their people as they could, and they set sail to the lands of Lordaeron to warn them about the threat of the Horde, and to get an army ready to fight over the fate of Azeroth. This war has lots of events. It's a huge story with a lot of important characters, but this story is about Khadgar, so I'll try to focus on him. At Lordaeron, they informed King Terras Manifield II about the coming Horde, and they worked on getting the Alliance of Lordaeron together to fight back. Khadgar was a mage from Dalaran, so he was summoned by Antonidas before the Council of Six to inform more about all the events that happened during his time with Medivh. Khadgar had left Dalaran as a young man, and now he returned looking older than most of them, with more power and more knowledge. Much had happened in only a few short years, and he told them about Medivh himself, the Orcs, Garona, Lothar, the fall of Stormwind, pretty much anything he knew, except his knowledge about the Order of Tirisfal. He expected that the council didn't know about it. He was actually right. They only tried to trick him into spilling more information, and to Khadgar's mind, they didn't need to know about all the actions of the council and all the information about the Guardian. Once his debriefing was done, they asked him what he was going to do next, and for the moment, Khadgar would stand at Lothar's side and help in the fight against the Hordes. He would be a connection between Lothar and the Kirin Tor. He would lead the Magi, and once all was over, if they would survive, he would probably resume his studies, but no longer answer the call of the Kirin Tor. Whether those studies would be within Dalaran or Karason or somewhere else, he didn't know yet, and for the moment, he had other things to worry about. He helped his friend Lothar with strategies, and he became a close friend to Turellian, a young paladin chosen by Lothar to become his lieutenant, and later on his second in command. Together with Turellian and Illyria Windrunner, they battled against the Horde, they tried to keep Quel'Thalas safe, and they came to the rescue when the Horde finally besieged the capital city of Lordaeron. Like I said, this war is a gigantic story, so I can't cover every little detail, but some of the things Khadgar did were simply amazing. When he first had trouble standing up against a small group of orcs, now he was facing an army. He summoned lightning into his hand, and he struck down groups of orcs at a time. At Quel'Thalas, they saw fire destroying the forest, so Khadgar, he summoned a mighty rainstorm, and when they had to communicate with the troops inside the capital city, it was Khadgar who jumped on a griffin, flew in, and communicated with the troops. Even though they had a few victories here and there, the numbers of the Horde, they were simply overwhelming, and the Alliance nearly lost the war. Thankfully for them, the Orc Gul'dan, who was put out of his position of power by Orgrim Doomhammer, he had not yet given up on trying to claim more power. He took a portion of the Horde forces, he traveled to the Tomb of Sargeras, since there he had found out that power was waiting for him. Orgrim was informed about Gul'dan's betrayal at a pivotal moment of the war. They were about to take the capital city, but Orgrim, he could not let Gul'dan's actions go unpunished. He had promised himself that he would lead the Horde to a more honorable future, and Gul'dan, he had to be put in his place. Knowing that this would cost him the siege, he sent a few of his forces to go and chase Gul'dan, while the rest of the Horde, they fell back all the way back to Blackrock Mountain, where they would make a stand and hopefully regroup with more forces from Draenor. Gul'dan would find the Tomb of Sargeras, but inside there was not just power waiting for him, there were also guardians and demons that took great pleasure in tearing the orc apart.
Damn you, Sargeras. I won't be beaten like this. I am Gul'dan. I am darkness incarnate. It cannot end like this.
Gul'dan, he lost his life in the tomb. Orgrim Doomhammer lost the final battle at Blackrock Mountain, and the Alliance, they decided to follow the fleeing orcs to find out where the Dark Portal was waiting.
The orcish hordes lay vanquished as the triumphant armies of the Alliance stood vigil over the evil gateway that had brought the orcs into Azeroth. Calling upon the arcane powers of the Archwizard Khadgar, the fury of the earth and skies were unleashed upon the Dark Portal to destroy it once and for all.
The first Horde invasion was stopped by the Alliance, and the day was won, even though it came at a great price. Orgrim Doomhammer, he had lost the Battle of Blackrock Mountain, but before he was defeated, he was able to take out Anduin Lothar. Trevelian, he saw his friend and leader fall, and instead of surrendering, as Orgrim had expected, he found his faith in the light, he picked up the battle, and he knocked Orgrim Doomhammer out. He did not kill the Orcish war chief, instead they imprisoned him, and the orcs that surrendered, they were spared and placed within internment camps. They were also forced into hard labor, and a statue was built to remember a great leader and a great man. Those that had stood against the Horde would forever be known as the Sons of Lothar, but unfortunately, the times of peace wouldn't last.
As the blinding light dimmed, an eerie glow fell across the black morass. For though the portal was destroyed, the rift that joined these worlds at war yet remained.
However, that part of the story I'll save for next week, where we'll talk about the second Horde invasion and of course the rest of Khadgar's story. For now, thank you very much for watching everyone. I really hope that you're enjoying the story so far, and next week we'll continue. Subscribe if you like my videos, and until next time guys, see ya!